Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this virtual panel discussion, Social Media Influencers. My name is Aileen Connie, and I'm a reference librarian for the Chicago Public Library. Due to high demand, this program will be recorded and archived on the Chicago Public Library's YouTube page. The national theme for Black History Month is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. The Chicago Public Library's African American Heritage Committee decided to discuss and celebrate Black hair and explore the theme of representation, identity, and diversity through the strands and history of Black hair. Today's moderator is Michelle Thames. She's a lifestyle content creator, social media strategist, and owner of the Thames Media Solutions, a social media agency dedicated to helping business owners and entrepreneurs thrive online. Our panel includes Patrice Brule-Yursik, creator and founder of Afrobella. She is called the godmother of brown beauty blogging. Aisha Bo Johnson, a digital content creator, speaker, and founder of AishaBo.com, a digital destination highlighting all things self-care for women of color. She specializes in writing about beauty, lifestyle, and wellness topics, highlighting the importance of internal and external well-being. And Nikki Walton, who is a best-selling and NAACP Image Award nominated author, TV personality, and a licensed psychotherapist. Nikki is an editor-in-chief, social media consultant, motivational speaker, blogger, podcaster, meditation leader, and mother. If you haven't already, please mute and turn off your camera. Unfortunately, we're unable to meet in person, but please join me in providing Michelle Thames, Patrice Yursik, Aisha Bo Johnson, and Nikki Walton with a warm welcome.
Hi, everybody. I hope that you all are having a great day today. I am so excited to be hosting this amazing panel with some amazing influencers in the natural hair industry and also lifestyle industry as well. My name, again, reintroducing myself, my name is Michelle Thames, and I am just so excited to be here. So we are going to jump into today's questions. If you have questions, you can place your questions in the question box, and at the end, I believe we will be answering questions. So if you have a question while we are during the discussion, you can just enter your question in the chat. So the first question that I am going to introduce to the panel is, how did you become involved in being an influencer, and how did it all start for you? I know that for many of us, it has been a long ride. I know many of us have been doing this for 10 plus years, so we are OGs in this natural hair game. So let's start with Curly Nikki. How did you become involved in being a natural influencer, and what has that been like for you?
Yes, thank you so much. I actually don't identify as an influencer. Like that name came along after I had already started. And for me, it always felt, well, I hated my hair. I didn't like myself. So like starting curlynikki.com was a way for me to learn to love my hair texture, to learn to love myself. And I shared that experience, that journey with the world, and it helped a lot of women as well. So I always considered myself like a synthesizer of information, an edutainer. I never did my hair on camera. I always shared what I was using, the ingredients. I would break down the science stuff behind like why I did what I did. But yeah, I've never really identified as an influencer. My whole thing has always been about finding your inner beauty, the kind that doesn't age and the kind that is always there and radiant and waiting for you to discover it. And then that gets reflected outside. And then because of that, because you're accepting, yourself fully, the world does too. It's a reflection in that way. So for me, it all started with my own journey of learning to love myself.
Yes, I love that. And I definitely agree with you saying influencer is a new term, because I agree. We were bloggers back in the day. I don't think it was necessarily influencer until like recent years. So I definitely can identify with that, and just starting a platform because, there was no one out there talking about natural hair. So I'm definitely love that.
And Afrobella. So Bravo Bella, she was out there. There was another one. Who was the other one? Patrice.
So when I first started in 2006, before me, there was Motown Girl.
Motown Girl, that's the one.
Yep, her name was Aisha.
Big shout out to her.
Yep, big shout out to her. She does not blog anymore, but I actually recently got in touch with her and her husband, and they're doing well. So yeah, it's still a community, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah, so Patrice, how did you become involved in blogging, and what has your experience been like?
Yeah, I liked Nikki's answer a lot about the word influencer, by the way, because I feel the same way. I started blogging in August of 2006. It was just a different time. So how I identify myself would be, I'm a writer, you know, I'm a writer and I have a journalism background. I started out as you know, in print journalism in a newspaper in Miami. And then I realized that I wasn't able to tell the kind of stories I wanted to tell, and I wanted to shine a light where we were kind of being hidden. So just kind of it started from there, telling my story, but as well as telling other people's stories and doing historical research and shining a spotlight on the people who inspired me to discover my own beauty, or the entrepreneurs who are creating products along the way. So all of that, you know, I pulled from my background as a writer to kind of create the magazine that I couldn't find at the time. And now, you know, like we've been saying, it's a whole different space. To me, the influencer thing started with YouTube, I think, and with Instagram, right? And I'm not sure what years those became a huge thing necessarily.
Yeah, I loved how you said that you're a writer too, because I feel like all of us, we have a writer in us, right? I started my blog writing as well and was able to write for other publications like Naturally Curly and Curly Nikki because I was a writer. So I love that you said that. I don't think that the term influencer is like, I think it needs to be like redefined, because I feel like it's just not one thing. It could be so many different things. And so I'm glad that you also brought that perspective as well.
Yeah.
So Aisha, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate you, and it's so lovely to meet all of you ladies today. I am slightly newer in the influencer space. I began blogging in 2016, and I too come from a writing background, and I started as a blogger, my own blog, which I do keep up right now, and I feel is so important in maintaining your own identity and also having your own platform. God forbid, you know, one of the others goes out of business. But I actually started my influencer journey, well, I guess the natural hair journey and joining YouTube because my mom actually suggested it. She was an avid watcher of, you know, YouTube videos, and she was just really immersed in the vlogging community. And she suggested that I, you know, give it a shot. And I was like, okay. So at the time I was transitioning to natural. And so I decided to document my journey. And ever since then, I've developed a really lovely community. But I too don't really consider myself to be an influencer, more so digital content creator, because I write, I shoot my own videos, I shoot my own photos, and I also write for other publications, and I create content for other brands. So I feel like it's a very multifaceted career path that I've been fortunate enough to now do full time. And I've just learned so much about myself along the way. So yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like I love digital content creator because that's actually what I say that I am, because I create content. You know, we all create content. And I want everybody here to know that being a digital content creator or influencer, it's work. It's a lot of work. And it's not just like something that you can do to get rich quick. I think a lot of people think of influencers, so they're like, oh, I want to be an influencer, and it's like a get rich quick type of thing, but it's not. So I'm so glad that you all touched on that it's multifaceted and that you can do many different things and still be quote unquote an influencer. So that was really good. So here's a really good question. I'm excited about this because I want to know, how do you feel that the natural hair community played a role in growing your personal brand on social media? Let's start with Nikki.
You know, I think about the comment section on curlynikki.com in like 2010, 2011, 2013, and a lot of these big box brands that weren't to market yet with a natural hair care line, and they were getting intel, like from myself and what I was sharing about what I loved about these smaller boutique Black-owned brands, and then also what my readers were sharing in the comment section. And they started reformulating their products, formulating new products based on what we were sharing, what we were talking about. And I could see, if we want to use the word influence, that's truly, that's an influence there, because now you can get anything you need from Target, from Walgreens, from CVS. But in 2008, when I got started, because my mom is like really into the natural hair care space now, and I'm like introducing her to all of these brands that she had no idea about, smaller brands that are still in existence today that I had to drive 40 miles to get to. So appreciative that all of this has changed and grown tremendously. But it's beautiful to know that it started on forums and in comment sections with women that were just truly passionate about learning to care for and love our hair and to get the rest of the world to catch up.
Oh, you brought up those forums. That's like old school. I'm not even sure if there are still forums, but like, remember the forums? Like, I mean, Lipstick Alley is probably still up there, but there were so many forums.
Long hair care forum.
Long hair don't care. Yeah, that was the one. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think that, there's that sense of community, but there's not like the forums where we can go to like really get the questions we need answered. So I'm glad that you brought up that OG forum, because I do agree with you. A lot of the natural hair brands were not on the radar, and you definitely helped to put so many brands on the radar and so many natural hair tips and tricks and things like that. So you are definitely a pioneer in this OG game. You are the first person in the blog that I know I went to. So I'm so excited about that. So Patrice, how do you feel that the natural hair community has impacted your brand online?
I was able to see the community grow and become what it became. I mean, like, that's the amazing thing about being one of the first in the space. When I first started, there was no Instagram, there was no Twitter. If there was a YouTube, it was not what it is now. So people came to forums, people used comments, people shared blog posts, people emailed you, like, what I mean? It was a different form of communication, and it was more, you were able to set the tone of the conversation a lot more, and able to speak to build an audience and to build a community. People were coming to us for specific information. So it wasn't like how it is now, where you were talking about boutique brands earlier. We are also boutiques, so you think about, you're providing a niche of information, you're providing a window into a specific world, and now Facebook is Walmart, or what I mean, and or Instagram is Target, and like, basically you have to put your product into a big box in order to be reaching this audience that used to come to your boutique before naturally. So it's a little different. You have to also, I don't know, social media it's a tool, right? So I try to approach it that way, that it is a tool, but at the end of the day, I still have my boutique to run, When I first started, Naturality was the huge forum that I think it still exists. And I think that there are still women who prefer a more curated space that is dedicated to Black beauty and to natural hair in that capacity. And I see that not necessarily because I'm still in forums, but there are offshoots of that in Facebook. And I especially see the Facebook group communities remain very strong. Especially if they're really centered and drilled down on a specific topic. So like there is a natural hair Facebook group that is always popping, because people always want information. Somebody is always new to the natural hair space. Somebody always has advice from having been natural forever, and that conversation will never end.
Yes, I don't think the conversation will never end either, but I loved how you touched on that as well. I think I used to visit that forum too. Like, forums are like OG old school.
You remember?
Do you remember Foki or Faki?
Fatki, I was just gonna say.
When you were talking, I was like, it just hit me. How do you say it? Is it Faki or?
I say Fatki, but Fotki, I don't know. Fotki.
That was our
like,
Instagram. That was
yeah,
our
that was the pre-Instagram for real. And it was so much about, it was really just a, you know, Black women sharing information that spoke to us for us. Like, it was just a different time and a different way of sharing. It would be interesting to look back on that now to see how we show ourselves and the things that we choose to share and how that's changed over time. Because it used to be the audience was just us, and now the audience is the whole world.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. So Aisha, how has it been for you?
It's been, you know, I think that word community is so important because I definitely feel that the audience that I have on YouTube is my community, because that's where I really started documenting my natural hair journey the most. And I just feel that, you know, YouTube is such a great platform because everyone there truly, they actually are there to take part in the content that you're producing and really focus in. It's not as quick as Instagram, so you don't have to capture them in the first like 10 seconds. They actually stay and they'll watch a 30-minute video. And I'm very detailed and, you know, I over-explain quite a bit, but they appreciate that, and and I love that about my community. And the comments that they leave, the questions that they ask, I think that they've really been such a great support system for me in helping me to, you know, get over being camera shy and to step up my creativity in a way, because they do appreciate, you know, when I go above and beyond and focus on the details and whatnot. So I feel like they've pushed me to become a better creator, and in turn they've become even more engaged, even more supportive, and I feel like that has really helped propel me, because I do consider myself to be more so of a lifestyle influencer, with natural hair being, you know, one of my pillars, and that community has helped to just, you know, help me move forward. And I, you know, I can't express my gratitude enough. Yeah.
Yes, the community part I think is so very important, and it's like what we don't think about, like, but community is really what it's all about, because that's what I tell everybody all the time. I'm building a community. I don't want just people that are following me. So I'm so glad that you brought that community piece up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's important to reply to your audience and to engage in, you know, comments and DMs and whatnot. And I really pride myself on being someone who engages like back. It's a social platform. These are social platforms. It's not, you know, look at me and then disappear. So I love that give and take that we have.
Yes, absolutely. And this leads into the next question, I think. How do we feel that the natural community has changed? Because I feel like back in the day, it's different, and now it's different. And I know each of you can give a different perspective, because Aisha, I know you're newer, and Nikki and Afro Bella and myself are part of the OG crew. So I want to start with you with this question. Do you feel like the natural hair community has changed over time? Do you feel that there's a difference between how it used to be and how it is now?
Yeah, definitely. I feel myself to be a really, really strong advocate for women of type 4 hair. In a lot of my videos, I am making sure that I, you know, note that I have type 4 hair and that I'm here to represent us, because I feel like the natural hair movement has kind of gotten away from women with type 4 hair, and it's coming back a little bit more recently, like very, very recently. But I think there was a moment in which the natural hair discussion kind of left behind one particular hair type over another, as it pertained, because larger brands were starting to catch on, and, you know, the whole marketing aspect started to build up. So they started to, you know, put different types of, you know, beauty standards on natural hair, which was something that we found solace in. And we essentially did it so we could feel free and feel more comfortable in our own skin. And then the narrative, I feel like, shifted to natural hair should look like this. Natural hair is supposed to be this way, or, you know, and I think that made it really difficult for a lot of people who were trying to really embrace their natural hair journey at one point. I feel that, you know, brands and influencers are trying now to, you know, show more representation and get back to the roots of the natural hair movement. But I do think that that was a part of the shift in who was represented, what was deemed the right type of natural hair, or how your natural hair should look, which I think is total BS. So I'm really, really happy to be representing women with type 4 hair and to talk to women with type 4 hair and help them through this journey, because I don't think it's right that, you know, they might be left behind or not represented in the way they should. So I feel that was kind of one of the bigger changes that I saw coming in a time where it was very, very much mainstream.
Absolutely. And that type 4 hair conversation, I don't know how much I like hair typing, but I get
Me
it.
neither.
I feel like we should just focus on our hair porosity and not our hair type. And I think we get into so many different conversations when we start talking about typing, and then people get left out. I think that there's also a color issue as well between light skin and dark skin, which if anybody wants to touch on that too as well. Afrobella, Patrice, what do you feel like the natural hair industry and our blogging influencer community, do you feel like it has changed since the beginning?
Absolutely, 100%. It's completely changed. And I hope that it's correcting its course now to be more truly inclusive. I think that it started out so based in information, you know, like when in the heyday of blogs, when Nikki and I were out doing our thing, and it was pre you know, the world of influence and Instagram and YouTube, and that being the you know, the bigger light, I guess, in the space. It was really about sharing information and you know, cocktailing, and I'm doing this to this product, and sharing those kinds of tips. And, you know, I tried a Bantu knot out this week, you guys, oh my God, like that was the kind of thing that people were excited to talk about and share. And then I really think as money crept into the industry, as it became about product and advertising and figuring out who you wanted to be the face of your campaign and all of that, it did turn into a time where I felt it was more about aspirational appearance than helpful information. So I think that for a while, I mean, myself included, I would look at all of these images of the, you know, big popular influencers and feel like I didn't have a space anymore, or feel like it was not about, it was about wanting texture, my texture to look like somebody else's instead of what is actually working best for me and my needs. And I think that it's important to get back to that space of what brought people to us to begin with. What, you know, what does an audience really want, and what do they deserve from us as people who are creating content? And those are the questions that I'm asking myself right now as I continue to figure out what content I want to create.
I think that that's so very important, those questions that we want to ask ourselves when we're creating the content, because the natural hair is just, it's been a like from A to Z. And I think that, like you said, I hope that it can get back to what it used to be, because I feel like it's drifting off into just a different type of space. Just the things that I've seen recently, I'm like, oh, you know, I wish that it just would go back to more being community. It just has become more of sell, and just a lot of, you know, just not as educational as it used to be. I guess that's the word.
This goes really quickly back to what you were saying with the influencer versus how you define yourself. I think that when you said that word needs to be rebranded, that's part of my issue with it, is I associate that term influencer with perpetual advertising. And I think that it's so important to still recognize, like, okay, yes, we need advertising. We're not mad at advertising. We all need to eat. There's enough pie for everybody. but let's share information that actually informs and uplifts. So
I love that. And that's what my platform is all about. And I will never shy away from that. No matter what I change to, it will always be based off of providing inspirational and valuable information. And I think that that's important for us to continue to do as well. So Nikki, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know like your blog, and I keep saying this, but your blog was like the blog. And I'm like, you had so much great information, and I know I still see your posts. So what do you feel, and how do you feel the natural hair industry has changed over the years?
You know, I loved when Patrice touched on service. That's what we provide, and that's what we continue to provide. And you don't see as much of that like on Instagram or on Facebook. And that's all I know how to do. I was never, like the person that was holding the bottle, like, this is what you should do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I need to eat too. But I always came up with creative ways to partner with brands so that it didn't feel that way. So I would go to Brazil and work with a nonprofit organization and give away products that happen to be from a particular brand, as opposed to, some other routes. But in that time, I'm introducing my audience to the culture in Brazil. I'm introducing them to this program, that's helping young women and children. It's like so many other things that we can bring in to the content, as opposed to just like, this is the new thing that happened at Walgreens last week. So for me, it always goes back to service. As far as the natural hair care movement changing, I remember in 2009, I was on my first TV appearance with Tyra Banks. And after the show, she was like, what's next? Like, are you gonna like just keep vlogging, or like, what's your plan for life? And I told her, I'm like, if I do my job, with me and this cohort of women that includes Patrice, then we won't have to blog after like maybe 5 years, because natural hair will become the new standard, the new normal. And that has become the case. You see it everywhere, red carpets, TV. When I was interviewing celebrities back in 2010, whenever I begged them to come and talk to me, and they finally started agreeing to do that, they weren't able to wear their natural hair on camera yet. They were still under wigs and weaves, and we still rock wigs and weaves now, but now you see more of our natural hair texture everywhere. And yes, there's still a lean toward looser textures for sure, but it warms my heart to know that my daughter, who's 10, of course, has never had a relaxer, doesn't even know what a relaxer is, loves her curls, loves her texture. And it's like not even a question of, is there another option? Like, no, this is my hair and I love it. This is who I am. So to know that the work that we've done, the service of providing just lots of information and over explaining, like Aisha said, going deep into science and like why products work and why certain techniques work better than others, like damp, styling versus wet styling for me, because I have fine hair. Going into that and sharing, that's the meat of it all. And I can remember moments like a couple years ago where I wanted to post a picture, and I would have posted that picture to Faki. I would have uploaded it without a second thought. But now that everything is so glossy and so overproduced, I'm like, I don't think I can post this picture. Like, it's not Instagram worthy. Well, it's not feed worthy. Maybe it's story worthy. And that sucks, because in 2008, I would post, it didn't matter what the back of the house, like the room looked like, what bathroom I was in. I would share because I wanted the women that were tuning in to be able to see, like, this is the product that worked, or this is the technique that worked, or this twist out, this twist and curl, without having to worry about the image, So if we could get back there to just sharing, without all the posturing, that'd be awesome.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I kind of want to segue into that before this next question, because I feel you. And I'm not a person that's like so into my feed and how the aesthetics look. And I try to get other people to understand this as well. But I feel that Instagram is actually moving away from being such an overly curated platform, because to be honest with you, I don't think that people want to see like overly curated beautifulness anymore on Instagram. They want to see real and authentic people. So I really try to be I can't do anything else but just share the real authentic me as much as possible. Like you said, sometimes I used to care like, oh, look, there's a piece of whatever in the background. Now I'll just post it because you know what? It's me and it's real. And I think that Instagram is moving away from that. I would love to hear your thoughts on whether you feel that Instagram is moving from being overly curated and what people want to see. I think they want to see more of real people. And any of you can jump in on that.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that. I think a lot of my monetization is on Instagram these days. So it's very, very important for me to like focus on my Instagram strategy very often. And I've never been the type who wanted like a completely like stark white Instagram feed, like everything is white, your whole house is white. I'm just like, but do you sit on your couch? Like,
Right. You have
like,
children.
Like, I don't know. I'm just confused. So I love color. Like my house is very, very colorful and it's not always so tidy and perfect. But I like to show that, and I'm not necessarily doing all of these like crazy like filters and super curated images. And I've still gotten a number of brand deals. I've still gotten a number of a number of followers and engagement because it's more so about the message. And is the photo what is, again, that thing of service? Are you providing a service? Are you providing value to your audience? Is there something in this caption that is captivating for them? I think that is what's most important now. I do feel that it is important to make sure that your content is cohesive and that there is some level of aesthetically pleasing content that you do post. But I think gone are the days now where, again, stark white for a beauty influencer, white and pink and beige and all that stuff, it's over. I think you can be whoever you would like to be on the platform. And I think that is really, really, really great. And people should definitely keep that in mind. But I definitely see that a lot, and I don't understand.
Yeah, like I could never get with like the overly curated. Like you said, I have beautiful pictures, and I do agree that it should be, some sort of flow to your feed. And again, your Instagram strategy is more important than, the pictures, and it's how you are strategizing, how you are posting your content. That is what really matters. And like Aisha said, she's still getting brand deals with her regular photos, me as well. So you don't have to be like super overly curated and have filters on all of your photos to, work with brands, because you absolutely can just be yourself. And that's what I really try to focus on as well.
And actually, some of these brands don't want any filters at all because they want their product packaging to look the way it looks in the store. And if your whole feed is skewed orange or skewed blue, then they're not really going to go for you, So I've also taken that into account as well.
Yes. Nikki or Patrice, would you like to add your thoughts to that? No? Okay. No, we're all over the overly curated, because I know, Patrice, I love your feed because you are very authentic in what you post, and it doesn't feel like you're selling when you do post your, sponsor content. I always feel like it's a part of your story. So I really love your feed. I just want to add that too.
Well, thank you. I haven't posted on Instagram in a little too long, and you're inspiring me to get back into it. And I thought about that this morning because you always do I see you as an early adopter of so many Instagram new technologies. And you're a person like you were one of the first people to do reels that I remember talking about and teaching other people how to do reels. I still haven't done one. But like the kind of thing that engages people. So I enjoy watching other people, but I get stuck in my head too much. So you're helping me. I find that I spend more time, my social media platform of choice is Twitter. So I'm more likely to be there than I am on Instagram. And I think a lot of that is just a feeling of wanting to have more privacy and not share everything of myself as much, I guess. And the feeling of it having to be perfect. So hearing what you guys had to say made me feel like I should jump back in the ring a little bit.
Let's not get started about reels. That's a whole conversation for a day, because reels are lit. And yes, I was a super early adopter, and it has just changed the game for my brand, to be honest. So use Reels, guys. We're not going to talk about Reels, but look it up. Use Reels if you have not used them yet. I think they're very beneficial to add to your brand. So we talked about hair typing a little bit, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. What are your thoughts on hair typing, and do you feel that there are any hair types that are not represented enough? I know we talked about 4C. So Nikki, do you want to jump in and talk about that?
Yeah, so in my book, in both of the books, I refer to hair typing, not as like a gold standard, but just to give everybody like a good blueprint, a good place to start, so that if I'm recommending a particular technique or a particular style or a particular product, I can say, if you're 3C, 3B, 3A, if you're 4C, if you're 4Z, you can really help people start somewhere, as opposed to just not having any place to start. I'm not a huge advocate for it, but I can see its usefulness in that way.
Yes, I definitely agree. I don't like hair typing. I just don't think that it's helpful, but I think that a lot of brands are starting to jump on the bandwagon and use hair typing to sell their products. So I think it's shifted some. So Patrice, what are your thoughts on hair typing?
I mean, I think that the person, who was it, Andre Walker, who came up with hair typing, I think that his intention wasn't to be divisive, but it did become a divisive tool over time. And yeah, I think that there are types that tend to be overlooked often. I guess the type I would say probably is the most overlooked would be in that 4A and 4B range, especially now we're focusing very much on 4C. There's a whole line of products now that's called 4C. Like people are very focused on extremes, I think, that, so if we can, make something that's for the coarsest hair texture, then that should be, cover everything. But it's like there's so many different spectrums in between. There are people with thick hair, there's people with fine hair, there's, we were talking about porosity. I've recently been talking to brand creators who don't even believe in porosity, you know what I mean? So there's different ways that people interpret how to create the product, how to get it into the hands of the consumer. And I don't necessarily always think that hair typing is helpful information for the consumer. It can just kind of put you in a category. So it goes beyond just saying this is good for 4C. What does it do for a 4C texture? And how is it helpful? So I think that going a little bit beyond actual typing is more helpful information, I think.
Yeah, I always think that going beyond typing is what's really going to help you, because I mean, there may be products that are geared towards 4C that can actually work for everybody, or geared towards 3C that can work for 4C. So
exactly.
I mean, I used to work for a hair care brand, so I know. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a lot of marketing involved, but
yep.
There is also too different type of ingredients and different products that work well for different hair types. So I know Shea Moisture has like so many lines and like that are geared for type 3, type 4, type 2, type 1. I don't know. So it can become, I think, confusing too to the consumer on hair typing and all the different products, because there's just so many.
Right. And I think educate your consumer about actual product application and use. There's been so many times that I've been using a thing and I'm just like, this doesn't work. And then I read it, I'm like, oh, you're supposed to emulsify it in your hands before you're like, oh, so just taking the time to actually read the labels and educate yourself is something that, but as the influencers, the people who are doing the unboxings, the people who are sharing the information, going beyond that label of this is for you, here's how you actually use it and here's how it's going to help you.
Absolutely. Aisha, what are your thoughts on hair typing?
Yeah, I think as Patrice said, I think that should be the blueprint. It's the beginning. It's something just to help you kind of, navigate just a little bit, but it shouldn't be the be all end all. For me personally, I say, I cater to women with type 4 hair because, again, products that work for 4C can work for someone like me who has 4B, 4A hair. And I do like what Patrice said about how we love the extremes. It's now like we have products for 4C and we have products for like, not even, I don't even think there's like anything catered to 4A, 4B, like you mentioned. But I think that it's so important to know, like in my videos, how to use products. I also talk about why a product is beneficial. I like to talk about the ways in which you can apply products if you have different types of porosity, if you have different type of porosity hair. I think that's what's most important, like understanding your hair fully and knowing like, okay, your hair is dense, or your hair is a lot finer, so this might not work for you. You might need this. I think is super important. And also when it comes to typing, something that really stresses me out is the perception that typing has. And there was one time where I had posted like ask me anything on my Instagram, and one of my followers was like, or what are your assumptions about me? I think that was like the trend like a few weeks ago. And and someone was like, I assume that you, what did they say, you have 3C hair or 3B hair. And I was like, have y'all, I mean, I might have a good twist out today, but like I was like, wait. And so I posted and I was like, no, I consider my hair to be about 4A, 4B, but it's very dense. And then someone replied in my DMs and she was like, but how is your hair type 4 when it curls? And I said, what? Do you not think that type 4 hair curls? It is a curl. We all have curls. I don't understand. So there is like some type of negative perception of those with 4C hair or 4B hair. And I hate that so much. I think it's ridiculous. And like you said, these brands are jumping on the bandwagon, just slapping 4A, 4B, 4C on a product and, not necessarily taking into account all the other factors. And people aren't necessarily taking the time to really figure out what their hair needs before jumping so much into the typing conversation. And I feel like that is just, again, the base level, requirement that you need to have in understanding your hair.
Absolutely. And someone does have a question before we move on to the next question about what are some good products for 4C hair, or do you feel like are some good products that you currently use?
I mean, I think for 4C hair, again, it depends on your porosity. If you have like lower porosity hair, you definitely would want something that's like heavy on the moisture and lots of slip. I've found TGIN products to be pretty good and have a lot of slip and moisture, and it really it penetrates very well. I think when it comes to 4C hair, it's also about like you should steam your hair, open up those hair cuticles so you can really, really get the products in there, maybe letting them sit a little bit longer to help you to really get that full impact of the moisture that the product has for you.
Yeah, and it's so there's so many products. Like we'll be talking all day about what products are good, but like Aisha said, when I was a loose natural, I love TGIN products. I know My Organics has their pomegranate and honey line. I know Shea Moisture has a product geared for type 4 hair. So there's so many different products. But the one thing that Aisha said that I do agree with, because I guess I'm still type 4. I mean, I have locks now, but I have type 4 hair, and people said the same thing to me, Aisha, like, you don't really have type 4 hair. Like, it's not type 4. I'm like, yes, it is. Are you up in like the scalp part? Because, it's really thick in there. So definitely steam your hair. If you have type 4 hair, that is what's going to help open up the cuticles and to deposit that moisture. So any products geared towards moisture will most likely help you. But again, it is a trial and error process. It is like not something that you can just say, oh, TGIN is going to work for me. You have to try it several times to see if it's really going to work for you. And that's something I think too in the natural hair industry. We would try products, but they may work twice or 3 times, but after using it so much, it might not work anymore because now our hair has changed and it got used to certain products. So it's really a trial and error process when it comes to finding the products that work best for your hair type.
My kids have type 4 hair, and I do too, especially in the back of my head. I love Onion Handmade. I've circled all the way back around to them. Their detangling conditioner is magic. I can't believe I
Honey
stopped. I
hemp,
told you. What'd you say?
that honey hemp conditioner
Yes,
and the
yeah, that.
hairdo.
My
Mhm.
mom brought it, like, she's like, I love this. And I'm like, I used to. Thank you for reintroducing me to this. And yeah, the hairdo, all of Onion's line. And you can get it at Target now instead of like, small boutique. So it's very, very awesome and very accessible.
Black owned, handmade products. The owners are amazing people. I'm not trying to plug them, but check them out. I'm not trying to plug, but definitely check out Onion. I mean, like she said, their product, that was the first. It's I used I forgot, it smelled like cookies. What was it called? The whipped pudding.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one. So check them out.
They're a nice family-owned brand that really have stayed true to their roots. You want to talk about being an OG, they're OGs in the space too.
Yeah.
Like I really love Jamila and her family.
Yes, yes. And I saw you just wrote something recently about them.
Yeah, I'm writing for TripAdvisor and other publications and stuff like that now. So I included them in my my travel lists. And that was interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. And I like going back to the old brands and the new brands. I saw the question that came up where she also mentioned graying hair, 4C, graying and thick. The gray hair struggle is so real, and those hairs just have a whole mind of their own, and it's a different landscape for me. I'm trying to figure it out. I keep them, they're hiding, they're all under here, but they're there, and figuring out what graying hair wants versus the rest of it has been interesting for me, because it just wants to be like, pow, like I'm here, look at me, I'm a lightning bolt, and the rest of it is like, I'm curling, look at me. Like, so I've been figuring that out. I realized that I was not clarifying my hair enough, and that I had a lot of product buildup. I recently did a test where they looked at my hair under like a microscope and all that. And I realized that from that result that I was just caking on way too many products with coconut oil as the base. And I needed to strip it down and get back to really cleaning the hair. So I've been using Briogeo. They have a good line for cleansing for the scalp and all of that. So I really like them. Surprisingly, I've been going back to some of the brands that I hadn't used in a while. Carol's Daughter has a new wash day line that I really like. Half of the conditioner is glycerin based. So for winter, glycerin is like my best friend. So those are what I've been using lately.
I'm like 40% gray. My family, they all gray early. My mom was gray by 40. I'm 37. Like, she was.
I can't tell.
Henna. That's what I was gonna say. I have not embraced it yet. And like I do have roots right now. I don't know if you can see. You can see them.
Just a little bit.
So every time I get roots, I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna stop hennaing my hair. And then after the roots get a little bit too intense, I'm like, let me just whip up this henna real quick. I don't want to do the salt and pepper phase. Like, I want to either look like Storm, like, so maybe I'll just like go white, or it's gonna look like this, and it's just getting oranger and oranger. Like in the sun, it looks fine in here because the light, but it's red. It's like a halo of orange in the sun, and I'm sure there'll be a line I'll cross where I'll know I can't henna anymore. I've got to embrace it. Like I embrace my natural hair. I got to embrace my natural color.
It looks beautiful.
It is. Yeah. I recently just learned about using henna. So do you use henna souk?
I've used henna souk for years, and whenever I don't have the time to wait to get it in the mail, I'll just jump on Amazon, which sucks because henna souk's henna it's the staining power is way doper. It's way richer than the stuff that I can get on Amazon. But usually I wait to the last minute and just have to make something happen so I don't look like, I don't know. It's so weird. In the spiritual journey I've been on, like, which has gone beyond outer beauty and inner beauty, and it's like now beyond beauty, like transcendent beauty. It's like, okay, so you've gotten here and you meditate all the time and you feel so loving, but still it's like, but gray hair, no, I gotta draw the line there. Not yet. I'm not ready for that. So I'm working on that because I want to love it. And I know there'll be a moment when I'm looking at it and I'm like, how did I ever want to dye it? But I'm not there yet.
Absolutely. So I do want to get into this next question. And this is for everybody who is wanting to be an influencer, who's interested blogger, influencer, content creator. We're going to use all of those terms. So how did you start working with brands as an influencer, and what was the process like too? And with this question, provide one tip to anyone wanting to become an influencer content creator in this space. And let's start with you, Nikki, because I remember there was an event that I came to that you were doing with, I think it was Dark and Lovely, and you were like one of the first bloggers that I seen working with brands in a different way. So how has your experience been, and when did you start working with brands?
Yeah, in a large capacity, it was probably about the time of the book launch with HarperCollins. So around 2013, with the Dark and Lovely launch. I was also working with Shea Moisture at that time. And I think my advice would always be to already know before you start exploring relationship with these brands, what your thing is, like what you're unwilling to do, who you are, what your voice is, and not compromise. Like, don't compromise it. But that's it. As long as you know who you are and what you're willing to do, it's going to make the negotiating process much easier. I walked away from many, many deals, from a lot of money, because it didn't feel right. And I'm happy to this day. It would be nice to have that money, but I'm happy that I kept my voice, the way that it was. I always felt like I wanted events and content offerings to be service oriented first. So whenever I started conversations with brands, it started there. What are we bringing to the table? So my second book I did with L'Oreal in 2016, and it was a free offering, which is still available now as a digital download, but it was coupled with their products. So it was just an announcement. If you bought something of theirs, it'd be like on the receipt and on the product itself, like also you can get this free book, Nikki's book, When Good Hair Goes Bad. So coming up with creative ways that felt good to me, it felt good to the brand, and also the customers getting a free book, a real book. It wasn't a commercial, the actual book itself, completely unbranded. There's like a brand insert. So creative ways to work with a brand that retains your voice and your authenticity. And I owe my longevity to that. That's what I believe.
That's so OG, because I don't even feel like none of this is happening anymore, especially in the natural hair space. It's just working with brands through a different avenue, which I still feel is a good way. But like you said, I'm the same way. I've turned down probably thousands of brand deals, because it's like, it doesn't fit, and I'm not about to do that or compromise my brand. So I'm very glad that you said that, like, not every brand deal is the brand deal for you. And I really do wish that a lot of brands would bring back, when COVID is over, like the event type partnerships with different influencers and content creators, those type of things, because I think that it's just more beneficial that way.
Those were so fun. And so I used to throw free Curly Nikki events. They started off in restaurants and we would product swap. So I'm like, hey guys, whatever platform we were using, maybe forums, and in my comment section, I'll be at the Cracker Barrel next weekend, bring your products. And 20 women would show up. That's how it started in 2008. By 2013, there'd be 1,000 women lined up outside, and me and Tracy Ellis Ross, myself and Marsha Ambrosia, like throwing these huge parties, and they were free. That was the other thing. I'm like, no, we're not charging, because I'm not singing, I'm not dancing, I'm taking pictures with everyone that comes in. I would stand and take pictures for 3 hours with every single person that came in, and I would stay late, even though the money stopped after them 3 hours. I would stay. And I think that spirit, that's the spirit. And I don't really talk about natural hair anymore because my passions have moved on, like I said, but I have that same spirit in what I'm serving now. And if you carry that into whatever you're doing, you'll be successful.
Oh, that's such a great tip. I love that. So Aisha, how did you start working with brands, and what has that been like for you? And what is your number one tip that you would give anyone when they want to start pursuing working with brands?
So I guess, well, the first thing, I'll give the tip first. The first tip that I have for anyone who is interested in working with brands and becoming an influencer or diving into this world is to first put yourself out there, get started, start producing the content. A lot of times we feel like, oh, well, I don't have any products, like no brands are sending me products, they're not sending me this, that. Well, what do you have? I have this chapstick on my desk. I have the shampoo in my bathroom, you know, a conditioner, a leave-in conditioner that's halfway done. Those are the products that you can start sharing with your audience now. That's what you can start sharing now, because at the end of the day, in order for these brands to want to work with you, they're going to need some example of your past work, what you can do, what you're offering to your community, how your community reacts to what it is you're offering. So my first and biggest piece of advice is to get started and use what you have right now. And also put yourself out there. It's okay to reach out to brands and at least put yourself on their radar so that when the time comes, they can at least circle back with you, or maybe they'll just send you product for now. But putting yourself out there in sharing your content and also directly reaching out to the brands is super, super, super important. It's better than, you know, just sitting and hoping and wishing. But I will say that a lot of my most lucrative opportunities have been from brands reaching out to me directly. And I think that's mainly because when brands reach out to you, they know they have a budget, they have a concept, you know, there's something in mind. So I think a lot of it is just that preparation. I'm making sure that my feed looks good. I'm consistent. I'm doing what I need to do so that when brands are looking, I'm the one that they're finding. And I started, since I'm relatively new, I started blogging about 5 years ago. I didn't really start to monetize until maybe, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 years ago when I actually ventured into full-time about 3 years, it'll be 3 years in March. I ventured full-time, and I didn't start like really monetizing to where I could make a living till last year. And now, you know, it's been really, I'm real excited. I have been like, that was the goal. And I'm just like, so happy right now. And I have gotten some really amazing opportunities in such a short amount of time. I think that when things, it was one of those moments, luck, when preparation meets opportunity, and things just really started to soar. And I started working with some really amazing brands. I have a long-term partnership right now with Dove, which I'm really, really grateful for and excited about. And I think it all came about because I've just been pumping out the work. When I wasn't getting deals, when no one was commenting, no one was clicking, no one was on my blog, I was still, you know, putting out the content, using what I had. And I think that has helped me so much. And also what's been helpful is that I'm not solely sticking to one path. Although we are here to talk about being a natural hair influencer, I think that it's important to also open yourself up to incorporating other aspects of your life or other things that you're interested in, because, you know, we could have another conversation about natural hair brands wanting to pay.
Sure can. Absolutely sure could do that.
Okay.
We won't do that today.
We won't do it today. But I think it's really, really, really important to be open to incorporating other ways or other avenues of monetizing.
Can I jump in real quick and add on to what you said about reaching out? The way I operate everything, I've never had an agent, I've never had a manager, but I've been on like every daytime TV show. I've done just everything, like the books, all of that was from emailing. Like literally I find who is the head of HarperCollins, who is the head of, like, who's bringing folks in at the Tyra show. And then I email them, and sometimes it works. 90% of the time it doesn't. That's 10%, you know, and you get that one, you get the next, you get the next. So if there's a brand that you want to reach out to, get on rocketreach.co. Rocketreach.co. Anybody you need, if you can't find them, you can see how the email is situated, and you can plug names in until you get to where you need to be. And then if it's your door, it opens. It opens.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes. I love that you share that, because I have an IGTV series called Black and Blogging. And in a few episodes, I'm going to talk about pitching, and I'm like going to plug Rocket Reach, because that was such a huge help. Like, just go to LinkedIn, find out what their title is, then go to Rocket Reach and
take care of your business.
Exactly.
And keep the email short, like no longer than a paragraph, because they're not going to read it, and make it about all of your highlights. Make yourself glow, and then see what sticks. Something sticks every time.
This is so awesome. I've never used Rocket Reach before. You guys are putting me up on game right now, first of all. And then second of all, the closed mouth don't get fed lesson here is so real. Um, there was a time within the last, let's say 3 years, 4 years, where I started to feel like I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm hitting a wall. The brands are working with these influencer network things that you have to all sign up for each one. They send you this survey, like, oh, maybe you could be part of this thing. And they're just taking your answers and your information and pitching. And you know what I mean? It's like, I missed that time of where brands would come directly to us the way that they used to. And it became instead, well, we're all going to go through, you know, 4 or whatever the, you know, different platforms were that exist. And it started, the opportunities started to get smaller and smaller. The asks started to get bigger and bigger. And I started to feel like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going to create 4, you are really asking me for 4 blog posts plus Instagram plus all of this for this much money. This is not my value. So I think that that is something that's so important, is to, even if you're brand new, you know what is too much to ask for you to do. You know what feels wrong when you're doing work and you're just like, they asked me for way too much. This is not right. You can feel it. And it doesn't make you happy to do that work. So that is something that I kept running into for myself in this time where I felt like I needed to compete and be an influencer. I would find myself taking these opportunities that weren't a good fit because I was trying to stay relevant based on terms that other people were setting for me that I wasn't setting for myself. So I needed to pull all the way back and find those other interests and not feel as dependent. So what Aisha was saying just now is something that related so strongly to me. I needed to get back to Patrice and stop trying to be Afrobella all the time, right? So that was something that helped to get me back to my center and finding different interests and finding different niches. Now I write about food a lot, and I regularly write for Food and Wine, and that has led me into a whole different direction. And from doing that work and being consistent doing other work, people were like, oh, well, we want you to write for us. Oh, we really like what you did here. Can you write for us too? Like, so now I'm copywriting for brands, and I also do, you know, I'll freelance for any major publication that feels like a good fit. There are so many different ways that you can influence, and there's so many different ways that you can get your voice out there. And looking to your left and your right and feeling like you have to do what the people to your left and your right are doing all the time is not going to take you forward. At least it didn't for me.
Amen.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
You're muted. Yeah.
I was muted, sorry. I was saying, speak on that. That is really powerful. And for me, I just want to add, I'm like Aisha. So I've been blogging going into 11 years now, and I really didn't start monetizing until I would say 2016, like seriously. And it became a full-time thing for me last year when I left my job. But like everyone here said, I turn down brand deals. If it doesn't fit, I'm not working with these brands, but I do get a large portion of brands that do reach out to me to work with me. And those opportunities, again, are more lucrative, and they offer more because, again, they have a plan, they have a brief, they have things that they have, you know, together. Like I'm currently about to start working on a 6-month campaign. And until this year, you guys, I have not gotten many long-term opportunities like 6+ months. And this year I've gotten a 6-month and a 12-month opportunity. So I just want to say to keep going, because I'm still doing this 10, 11 years later, but I've pivoted. Most of you know, I used to be known as Naturalista86, and I changed my Instagram name to Michelle L. Thames because I just felt like Aisha, I was talking about all these things and it just really didn't fit into what my brand was moving towards. So I decided to change my name. Now, that's not saying I'm not working with brands anymore. Of course I am, but it's just a different landscape. And now I feel like now I can work with natural hair brands if I want to. I can work with business brands. I can work with family, because I talk about all of that, and it all encompasses in my brands. I just want to give anybody who is just thinking of quitting or giving up, don't give up, because again, I've been at this 11 years, and it wasn't until last year that I started to make a full-time income off of brand deals alone. So don't give up. You just really have to know what your brand is about and know what you're not willing to accept. Because like Afrobella said, a lot of brands want you to do so much work for so little. And my favorite word is no. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm not giving up perpetuity, which is something that you all should make sure that you're aware of, which means forever. I just had a brand approach me and wanted to do perpetuity, and I told them, no, you don't have enough money to use my content for life. So those are just some things to think about. Don't get discouraged, because you can work with these brands, but just know to keep going, because again, no one read my blog in the beginning. I'm sure no one read any of our blogs, but we had to keep going. So I just wanted to give that word and just let you know that it is possible to work with brands, but it's just going to take some time. And I know you see all these bloggers and influencers working with this brand, that brand, this brand, and that can get like, it can cloud your mind and really get into your head. Like, why aren't they reaching out to me? But the brands that are for you are going to be for you. So that I'm so glad. And I think this is the last question before we move into the question portion. And I guess this leads into that, because I just talked about motivation. So how do you stay motivated as a content creator? How do you stay motivated as a blogger, influencer in this space and in business in general? Like, how do you just stay motivated to keep going? Aisha, we'll start with you.
So I definitely have to start by saying I'm not motivated every single day. There are days where I wake up, and although I love what it is I do, I'm not necessarily motivated to, put in all the work that needs to be done. But I think it's a matter of routine and discipline, and just getting up every single day and, doing what needs to be done. Just thinking about the long-term benefits of it, and thinking about what service you can give to others. I think one thing that helps me to keep going is that although some people who are on the outside looking in might feel like being a blogger or an influencer is self-serving because you're posting photos or doing videos and whatnot, at the end of the day, what I'm doing is to help someone else, to share with someone else, to inspire someone else through, if it's even just my journey, like hearing the fact that I decided to be an entrepreneur, that I went out on my own, I left this lucrative career to be broke for a few years, and now I'm making money again. Like, even if it's that inspires someone, and it's not my hair or the brands that I'm working with, I think that is what helps to motivate me each day, and knowing that I'm doing it because it's more than me. It's something that is greater than I am. And also, I think understanding that I do have the freedom as an entrepreneur to take breaks and take a moment. I think that helps me to stay motivated as well. I do not play when it comes to taking a step back and taking a beat to regroup and to regain that motivation, that level of motivation and excitement or creativity. Sometimes I do need moments of rest in order to stay motivated. And I think that sometimes we don't take that into account. It's like, how do you stay motivated? Well, I make sure I get up and I do this and I do that and I do. But sometimes what helps me to stay motivated is just like, you know what, today I'm going to lay down for a few extra minutes. I'm going to, not look at my phone for a little bit. I'm going to have tea. I'm going to be in silence. I'm going to maybe take a longer shower than normal. I think that rest helps me to maintain that motivation, and also seeing the bigger picture and knowing that each and every day I'm working to help and inspire other people.
I love that too, because you're right. Not every day is like a super motivating day. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I got to get up and do this. And it's just like, sometimes that motivation just isn't there, because it is a lot of work to day in and day out create content. And just, I don't think that people who are not content creators just don't understand the amount of work that it takes into everything that we do. So I'm so glad you said that. Nikki, how do you stay motivated?
Yes, I like when you just said, oh, I got to get up and do this, because that's the way I would wake up every day. It felt like Groundhog Day. And I started shifting to, I get to do this stuff. I get to write on my blog and update to Instagram and post to Facebook and take care of these kids and, make dinner. Like, I get to do these things. I'm blessed. So just like little reframes, that has helped tremendously. And like Aisha was saying, just knowing that what you're doing is a service. And for me, in the mornings, this is I think like day 88 now of waking up before the sun. It's like a thing that I've been trying to do to give myself more time before I'm mom, before I'm a daughter or a sister. I can just be. And so I spend about an hour and a half, 2 hours between meditating and journaling. And from that still point, that motivation comes, that inspiration comes. And sometimes it comes out as a post. Sometimes it just comes out as me responding to DMs lengthily, like a long one, or jumping on calls. If women are in my DMs and they're really like, I do not like what's going on in my life right now, I'm like, well, let's get on a call. And I don't charge them, because there's been many people that have gotten on calls with me for free. Like Tracy Ellis Ross, I called her sobbing and she took my call. So I pay that back all the time. And it's because it is beyond me, but it's also like an extension of me. Because if you can look out and see everyone as you, as that presence of love, then you're just extending. So when I'm writing my content, I'm not like, what would they want? I'm like, what do I need? What do I need to hear? And so I share that, and it touches people in that place where we're the same.
I love that you said waking up before the sun, because I definitely wake up early. And like you said, before the kids come running in, I just have to spend that time with myself. And like, I've been on this spiritual journey as well. And it's just like, I feel like my life has shifted in the last 3 years. It's just, I mean, I locked my hair and then people were like, you're locking your hair. And it was just like this whole journey that people didn't understand, but I was just really redefining who I was and just getting back to like the root of myself. And so it's been crazy. It's been amazing. And it's just been super motivating for myself to continue to move forward. But I love that you said that, waking up before the sun, because I'm an early riser, but sometimes I look at the clock, I'm like, oh, it's 5:30.
Exactly. I'm not an early riser. My body was naturally waking up at that time, but I would go back to sleep. And Rumi has a beautiful poem where he's like, don't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. There are secrets that the dawn has to tell you. So I started finally dragging myself out of the bed. And sometimes, like I even say, like getting out of the bed and sitting for meditation is my true employment. All of my money and my abundance, the added things, comes from this time. And I have to have this time because it feeds the rest of the day, the rest of this life. And yeah, I'm tired, but I can be aware of the fatigue and also aware of what's all around it and throughout and pervading it, which is that peace that we all need to stay aware of every moment of every day.
Yes. Afrobella, Patrice, what about you? What keeps you motivated?
It's funny, I just tweeted a little bit about this. I was struggling within the last, let's say, honestly, I would say the last 4 years have been a struggle, but last year in particular, I found myself getting really caught up in politics and really caught up in that crazy election and everything that was going on, and just paying so much attention to, I was just watching cable news all the time. And I was getting pulled into this feeling of, what am I doing? And I started to feel like there were days that I felt like my content didn't matter because there was so many serious, heavy things going on in the world. And I still can feel like that. There's, you look up on the news and you see people don't have power and all of the stuff that's happening in this country right now. And it's like, I'm supposed to write about my hair today? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it started to really feel like I didn't know what my purpose was. And I had a talk with my dad that was really positive. And the advice that he gave me is, he's obviously not an Afrobella reader or somebody, he supports me, but he was like, Patrice, I see you as somebody who your role is to tell the story for people who can't tell their own story, And I was like, okay, that's interesting, because that is something that I like to do. I like to do interviews. I like to tell other people's stories. I like to share other perspectives that's not just me all the time. And I just tweeted about this yesterday. I pulled it up while we were talking. I said, I'm trying to figure out how to scale this pandemic wall. What is helping you get over when you feel stuck these days? Because I have days where I feel stuck, and I have days where I'm not motivated, like what you were just saying, and this lady named Adrienne, her Twitter name is Aquafar E. She said, we are not stuck. We are in a serious pandemic. Free yourself from being harsh on yourself about this. We are doing the best we can, including you. And I was like, okay. Like I needed to hear that. I needed that reminder, because there's times I look at, you know, the highlight reel of Instagram of what everybody else is doing and feel like I'm somehow not doing enough, even though I feel like I'm paddling as fast as I can. So recognizing that your place in it all, that you're looking at highlights and that you are doing your best, I think is so important. And just kind of being honest with yourself and having those tough conversations sometimes, like, okay, this really helped to keep me motivated up to this point, but what do I actually want to do? Do I feel proud of the work that I've been doing? Is this the kind of work I want to continue doing? And having some of those really tough come to Jesus moments with myself within the last year helped me to get my mind right, and is leading me to the kind of work that I feel proud of doing again. So that's the best advice that I can give there.
Yes, and everybody needs to give themselves grace, because
Yes.
we're in a pandemic, and yes, there are people that are pushing through and doing stuff, but like, I mean, I know it may seem like I'm doing a lot, but some days I'm just like, this is a lot, and I need to sit down. Like last week, I was like, I need to sit down. I just need to sit down. And we can't look at what everybody else is doing, because I think everybody is at a different space and a different place during this time. So we just have to focus on what's best for our mental health, because it can be a lot with this pandemic. So we're all doing our best. And I'm so glad you said that we all should give ourselves grace, because this is something that no one has, you know, we haven't been through anything like this in our lifetime. So, and with kids, it's a whole nother story. So that's a whole nother conversation. But we do want to get into some questions that some people had. And the first one is, does the panel feel that there is a socio-cultural divide in the Black community between those with natural hair and those who get their hair relaxed or wear wigs and get extensions? I know that's a juicy one. Anybody could jump in.
I've had times where people have tried to create that divide. Nikki, you had talked about doing television earlier. I haven't done a lot of television, but there was a show that I did that was a talk show by a popular person. I don't even want to call the name right now, but that was the intention of me being booked on the show, was to put a woman who wore a weave and have us go at each other. And we didn't realize that this is real. This is very real. This happened. I'm friends with the woman now. We're fine. Everything is cool. But it was such an ugly experience to have. And I think that sometimes we perceive the divide more than it actually exists. In my own family, I have women who are relaxer users who will never stop relaxing their hair. Or I will always wear a wig because I would like my hair this way. But that's my mom, that's my sister, that's my auntie, that's my family. We have different feelings about how we present our beauty, but we're always family, you know? And if it is that I am able to help you see your beauty in a different way and help you, encourage you to embrace your beauty in a different way, then that's great. But I don't think personally that it is for me to sit and say that my choices are better than your choices, because you have to do what you have to do to get you out of the bed, to help you look in the mirror and help you face every day the best that you can. That's how I feel about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really feel that there is. I mean, I was one of the last people of my friend group to decide to go natural, and there was never, you know, any divide between us. I never judged them. And I feel that that's the same now. I do feel maybe there people who do still have relaxers are not as represented anymore, because the conversation is heavily about natural hair or protective styles like wigs, weaves, and braids. So I can see that maybe being a conversation, but in terms of there being any divide, I haven't really noticed that.
I wrote my first book, Better Than Good Hair, mainly because I was still working as a licensed psychotherapist, and many of the women I was seeing in North Carolina, low income, they didn't have access to the internet. Again, this was like 2012, 2013. They didn't have access to the natural hair care movement, which was mostly online. And so they hair came up a lot. It was a part of their self-esteem issues. And, you know, they'd wear wigs, they'd wear weaves. And of course it's cyclical because they were covering their edges that were falling out and the wigs was making it worse. So I thought that even though 2013, it felt like a book was largely unnecessary already, it felt necessary for accessibility for communities that didn't have internet in their home. So I don't believe that divide is there now, but it definitely was when the conversation was primarily happening in forums and on websites.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Aisha said, I don't feel like people with relaxers are represented as much because the conversation is on natural hair. So I'm glad you brought that up too. One of the other questions was, what are the biggest challenges of your work and what has been the biggest joys of entering the market? If anyone wants to jump in on that one.
I think one of my bigger so one of the things that I'm currently working on that's challenging for me is managing all of my partnerships and things that I'm doing on my own. So that has been really difficult. My hope is that one day I can, you know, hire an assistant in the future. But right now, and for most of us who are content creators, I think that that is a really big challenge because you are, you know, you're I don't know, you're pitching for your brand, you're your creative director, you're a model for your brand, you're you know, you're your own assistant, you have you're your accountant, you're every single thing all into one. And it can be really, really difficult, especially for people who don't have that business background or that creative marketing background or, you know, a PR background. I was fortunate enough to come from a PR background because I was a publicist for many years previously. And I also had a background in writing and journalism. But for other people who don't know about that, but I don't know business and, you know, trying to get like my finances together or like, you know, when it comes to, you know, all of that, I think that was one of the most difficult things. That's been one of the most difficult things for me as a content creator right now. I forgot the first part of that that question.
What was the biggest challenge? And I think you answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
For me, like wearing all of those hats, like the hats you're talking about, Aisha, the one that was most difficult because I am introverted primarily. A lot of opportunities that started coming through was like, okay, we need you on this camera, you know, we need you on CNN tonight, we need you to deliver your talking points. And I'm like, I have a fear of public speaking. So there's that. And so then I remember like my first appearance, I felt like I couldn't even eat for a whole week leading up to it because that's how intense the fear was. And that continued for years. Every time I got an opportunity, I'd be like, oh, Steve Harvey. And then immediately that feeling would sink in, like you're not good enough, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna forget what you're saying. You know, it's like that imposter syndrome. So as a psychotherapist, right, I should have been able to work through those things like the way the textbook taught, but I wasn't. That fear was very intense. So learning over time to embrace the fear and allow it to be there and know that, oh, I'm gonna expect the fear like clockwork, the way I expect to see the cameras and the host and the microphone and fear. And as soon as you accept it and you don't need it to be gone, I thought that I needed to not feel fear in order to be successful. And I've learned, oh, fear can be here and I can still be the fullest version of myself. Like it doesn't have to stop me from using my voice. And once I realized that, which was way later on, things changed. But yeah, if there's something that you're scared to do, you have to do it with the fear there and just let the fear be there. Be like, hey girl, sit and let me work.
Do it scared. Do it scared. Patrice, did you want to add anything about any of your biggest challenges of your work?
Balancing it all. I think that's probably my biggest challenge right now. I am good for coming up with another project that when do I have the time to do that one? You know what I mean? Like I'm always coming up with something new. And I realized like I have really recognizing that this is a business, like, because I started out with this as a hobby. It didn't seem like blogging could have been a business back in 2006. So it took me a while to put this, well, to weave up a businesswoman's hat to put on in the first place. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even know what that was for a long time. And then stepping into my power and recognizing my agency, I think has taken me a long time. And it still continues to be a challenge. It is very easy for me to shelve every personal project and aspiration I have for an assignment that I'm given, or for something that somebody tells me that I should do, or for a paid opportunity. Like, I'll be like, oh, that book that I'm working on, like I'm doing this now. You know what I mean? Like, that is where I am struggling to still prioritize my own dreams and prioritize my to see long-term before short-term. So I guess that's the struggle that I'm still having. I think I'm getting better. Last year, I think, trying to distract myself from everything that was bringing me down by doing as much work as possible and just by ramming my calendar full of deadlines. And it helped for a little while. It did, but then I did hit a wall. So now I'm just trying to give myself more grace, give myself more space, and recognize long-term goals over short-term, deadlines.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with everything that you all said. For me, I think it's been too delegating, because now I have 2 businesses. So now, like, it was crazy. And at the end of last year, I had some crazy experiences and had to like totally redo a lot of things that I had started in my agency. And yeah, like you all said, I jumped into entrepreneurship. I mean, I've always done my blog as my side hustle, but just jumping into entrepreneurship full time with 2 different businesses that are similar and different at the same time, it was kind of a lot. But I've learned to delegate and recently hired people, because there's no way today I could even do this thing what we're doing here if I didn't even have a team. And I think that, like Aisha said, I'm to a point now where I need a administrative assistant. I'm actually like looking for somebody, because I can no longer go on like this with the bandwidth that I have if I don't hire somebody. So I know how they always say, like, hire before you're ready, but that is actually true, because I don't think I was ready to hire the people that I hired last year, but I have 4 people like on my team already. And so it's just been a crazy experience, and really learning to delegate stuff to different people. I had to say, okay, Michelle, you can't control everything all the time. Like, you have to give these people, leeway and expect them to, do what they said that they're going to do, and they're going to do it. So me, like, not trying to control everything, I guess, because I'm a Libra, and like I just want to make sure that things are like good. So it's like kind of hard for me. So I've had to, say I trust these people, and I know that they, are here to help me and to help my businesses thrive. So that's been a struggle for me. And one of the biggest joys too has just been to be an entrepreneur, to have my freedom, to be with my daughter. One of the reasons why I left my full-time job in the beauty industry and social media was because my daughter was going to kindergarten, and there would be nobody to pick her up from the bus stop. And that was important to me. So I had to make a decision and say, okay, I know that we can be okay, but I have to do this. So I just want to give that advice as well. And we're going to do one more question. So we have a few minutes. So the last question is, for someone who deals with analysis paralysis, when you feel ready to move from the building and planning phase and put yourself out there to pitch, how do you move yourself from that? I would just say just pitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. You do have to just do it. I listen to a lot of different podcasts. That's like my thing, and it helps me to get a lot of information. And I love to listen to podcasts that feature different entrepreneurs, whether it's in the same space or different spaces. And for a business entrepreneur I was listening to, he said that one thing that he had to adapt was just moving forward with the MVP, which is like the minimum viable product. So essentially it's the bare minimum that you need to produce something or to put something out there. So if you have your website up and running and you have, a few blog posts ready to go, everything may not look perfect or as beautiful or neatly packaged as you might like, but you have the content there to put out. You have, that post that you can share with the audience and you can spread it out. So you have to just move forward with it. And from there, you course correct as you go along. I think we rely so heavily on perfection, and it just stifles our potential, because we're sitting there and we're fine tuning, and we're researching and studying other people so much that we're losing time, and then eventually we're going to lose our motivation, or whatever it is that we had in our in our view before is just going to fall by the wayside, because we spent so much time preparing it, or essentially ramming into our minds that it's not good enough. But it is good enough. Whatever you have right now is good enough, and no one has ever learned anything from doing it perfectly the first time, or doing it right the very first time. So I have learned so much from trial and error. I've learned so much from just doing it. I am self-taught in photography and doing videography and things like that, and my photos were terrible. If you scroll all the way down on my Instagram, you can see the little ashy pictures I had before, and you can see how they've developed now, because I just put them out there, and I was proud of my work then, and I'm proud of my work now. So I think it's really, really important to just put yourself out there.
I think we overthink so much. Just post the picture, post the Instagram, send the pitch, and just don't even think about it, because I think when you know that what is for you will be for you, that'll help to change your perspective as well. I put stuff out there and I'm like, well, if it's gonna be for me, it's just gonna come on back. Like when I pitch brands, if it's gonna be for me, it's going to be for me. I used to get so in my feelings, like posting on Instagram, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have posted that. But now I post whatever. I don't hold back. I share, my experiences. I share my feelings. I share everything, because it's just a part of what my brand is. And I don't want to not post anything because I'm feeling like, oh, no one's going to like this. I really had to get out of that. And it really took me some years to really say, okay, Michelle, just post the picture. What's the worst that can happen? So yeah, I definitely agree with what Aisha said, just to really get out there and just post or reach out to the brands, just start.
I've reached out to CEOs of companies with, hey, I've got a great idea. And the idea is not there yet. I'm just trying to see if I'm gonna get a meeting. And I do. And then I have to finish. I've done that so many times. I'm notorious for it. My friends always laugh. But I mean, yes, do it. Do it. But stay in your center. So don't do it from stress. Don't do it from tension. Keep actively relaxing your shoulders during the day. Keep actively letting your stomachs poke out. Like we're taught as women to hold our stomachs in, and we do that now. Sometimes you're not conscious of it. You're doing it because you're almost holding your breath, because you're anxious about something, you're worried about something not being good enough. So relaxing all day while you're doing the work, and things come.
Yes.
That is brilliant advice. I definitely agree with you on that. And yeah, just what do you have to lose? There's a quote that's out there that, it's kind of sassy or whatever, but it's have the confidence of a mediocre white man. And I've seen it all over the place. I love that quote. And it's so true. You look at some of the people who, are pundits on the news, or who are, getting huge opportunities to do stuff. And are they smarter than you? No. Are they better than you at what they're doing? No, they just put themselves out there and they just asked, So my biggest contract that I had last year came about from a DM. I DM'd this brand on Twitter. It was like, what are you guys looking for in terms of partnerships? I didn't even have an idea, but I put it out there, and they were like, we're actually working on a program. You might be and we wound up doing a 5-figure thing. So it was totally unexpected, but it was, it's where preparation meets destiny, and you have to prepare yourself as well. So I feel like everybody gave such great advice, and I hope that what we're saying is received by people who are at all different levels, whether you're an expert or whether you're brand new. don't let that fear get in your way and hold yourself back anymore. Like even the advice that Michelle, you were giving, and Aisha, everybody, I'm like, all right, I'm going to post on Instagram this week because of you all. And I appreciate you getting me out of my rut as well.
I love it. This has been so great. Thank you to the Chicago Public Library for putting this together. I'm just so excited and so glad that we could discuss this amazing topic with everybody.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you. Thank you very much. That concludes this panel discussion. And we'd like to thank our moderator, Michelle Thames, and our panelists, Patrice Yursick, Aisha Bo Johnson, and Nikki Walton again for providing this wonderful program. So please be sure to check out other virtual programs from the Chicago Public Library for Black History Month. And thank you very, very much, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.